Quadeja Holly Johnson back in the courtroom today, charged with first-degree murder and 5 additional counts in the shooting death of a 31-year-old mother in Chicago's South Loop. Her attorney wants her out while the case is moving forward.
Let me ask you something before we even get into this. How does a school drop-off turn into a homicide? And how does one man sit at the center of 2 women's lives when only one walks away alive? Because this case didn't just shock Chicago. It split opinions down the middle. And even now, the truth feels uncomfortable to touch. Before we go any further, if stories like this matter to you, stories where real lives are changed forever, don't just watch quietly, like this video. Comment your thoughts, share it so others can weigh in, subscribe to Mystoracrimes, and click that bell icon. These cases deserve attention, and silence helps no one. Now, let's talk about what really happened. On the morning of September 8th, 2025, Romeca Meeks-Blackmon was doing what millions of parents do every weekday morning. She was taking her young son to school in Chicago's South Loop. No signs, no warnings, no reason to believe this would be the last morning of her life. At the same time, Quadeja Holly Johnson was also there with her own infant child. 2 mothers, 2 children, one man tying them together. That man was Carlos. Carlos is a father of children with both women, and according to prosecutors, what began as a verbal confrontation quickly spiraled out of control. Words were exchanged, emotions flared, and then came the moment that everything hinges on, the moment where stories begin to conflict. Prosecutors claim the argument escalated, that Carlos tried to intervene physically, and that Johnson later retrieved a firearm and fired multiple shots. Romeca did not survive. A mother was pronounced dead, and a community was left asking how something like this could happen in broad daylight, near a school with children present. Johnson was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. From the beginning, her defense held on to one phrase, self-defense. She is legally licensed to carry a firearm. She says she feared for her life and her baby's life. And just like that, the case split public opinion clean down the middle. Was this a mother protecting herself and her child? Or was this a moment where anger crossed an irreversible line? And here's where things start getting heavier. Because months later, prosecutors didn't stop at one charge. They added 5 more. And when Johnson returned to court just days ago, something happened that shifted the entire conversation. Carlos spoke. And what he said directly challenged the story we've been told. Carlos, the man at the center of this tangled mess, finally spoke in court 3 days ago. Imagine sitting in a courtroom where a mother lies dead, another mother sits in the defendant's chair, and the man who connects both lives stands up and tells his side. He said he never put Romeca in a headlock, never beat her with a car door, and insisted he only tried to defuse the situation. He sounded frustrated, almost desperate for people to understand what really happened.
I'm just tired of the lies and everything, what they said I did. I know for a fact it wasn't true. I didn't headlock her. I didn't beat her with the door. I only try to defuse the situation. They keep deflecting away from that. And what I did what they saying I did made it sound harsh, and I didn't do that. So we need justice. We need justice to be served too, the truth. And they keep deflecting from it.
Think about that for a second. Here's a man whose actions are tied to both women, whose presence may have escalated a confrontation to lethal violence. And yet he insists the story being told by prosecutors is exaggerated. That's heavy. How do you parse truth from fear, from anger, from public opinion? And this is where the psychological tension hits hard. Who do you believe when everyone involved is emotionally invested and everyone has something to protect? Meanwhile, Holly Johnson sits in custody. Her request for release was denied, and she will remain in jail until her next court hearing in early February. The courtroom exchanges have been intense, with lawyers arguing over evidence, over credibility, over the narrative itself. Prosecutors emphasize that multiple shots were fired, that an argument escalated to murder in broad daylight. Johnson's defense emphasizes fear, self-preservation, and her responsibility to her own child. The 5 new charges added to the case make everything even more complicated. We don't yet know the exact legal wording for each count, but they exist, and they increase the pressure legally, emotionally, and in the court of public opinion. People are debating, Does adding new charges make the case stronger, or does it make the prosecution look like they are overcompensating to secure a conviction? And then there's the public reaction. Social media exploded with people taking sides, sharing versions of events, speculating about Carlos, about Johnson, about what the truth might be. Some call it self-defense. Others call it cold-blooded murder. Some wonder if Carlos could have done more to stop it, if any of this could have been prevented. It's the kind of case that makes you question human behavior in extreme circumstances. When does fear become aggression? When does protection cross into violence? And how much of what we see and hear is shaped by perception, by emotion, by the very story we want to believe? Pause and think. Could you make the split-second decision Johnson claims to have made? How would fear, anger, and responsibility to your child influence you in that moment? And how do you weigh conflicting accounts when the stakes are life and death? As this case unfolds, the twists keep coming, and the psychological weight of it all is enormous. Imagine being a neighbor, a passerby, or even someone scrolling through the news feed. The tension of a mother killed in daylight, a second mother claiming self-defense, and a man caught in between defending himself verbally in court. It's like watching a storm slowly build, knowing it's coming but powerless to stop it. The investigation revealed details that are difficult to digest. Romeca was dropping off her son, her routine disrupted by a sudden, fatal confrontation. Holly Johnson had her infant with her, adding urgency and fear to her decisions. Carlos, who connects both women, insists he only try to calm things down, yet his presence cannot be ignored in the chain of events. Every interaction, every gesture, every word in that moment contributed to what ultimately became a deadly outcome. And here's where the case turns a shade darker. Prosecutors maintain that Holly intentionally retrieved a firearm and fired multiple shots. The 5 new charges complicate matters. They suggest that the state believes there are additional violations beyond the first-degree murder count. Johnson maintained self-defense, arguing that she feared for her life and the life of her child. In court, the narrative split is raw and emotional. One side points to premeditation, the other to instinctive survival. Carlos's testimony, though brief, added another layer of complexity. His insistence that he didn't harm Romeca didn't escalate the argument, and only tried to defuse tension raises questions about accountability and perception. Did he fail to prevent a tragedy? Or was he telling the truth about his limited role? And how much does fear and stress distort what anyone remembers in such chaotic moments? For the public, the story is more than facts. It's a psychological puzzle. People ask themselves, could I have acted differently? How do I judge someone's split-second decisions? What responsibility does a parent bear when fear intersects with a life-or-death scenario? And ultimately, when the line between defense and aggression blurs, who decides the truth?
Well, let's start off with this. So we found out just going through this case, someone had posted to me on Facebook saying there are additional charges. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to look and see, was that indeed true? And we found out that on December 30th, that there was an indictment that came back for 5 additional charges for Quadesia, obviously murder still being the highest charge. But when we looked at what was filed just 2 days ago, so filed on Monday by her attorney, we're actually learning a whole lot more. We're learning more about the case. We're learning more about her. And some of this stuff is a bit shocking, to be honest. One being that according to Quadesia's attorney, Ari Williams, is that the key witness for the state, according to them at least, going through these 20 pages, had on noise canceling headphones. So the question is, did that person hear what they said that they heard? And then there's some conflicting statements based on other witnesses that were on that scene. That's one thing that we learned. Look, I had to break all of this down because it's so much information. They're basically saying here that there is not clear and convincing evidence that Quadesia Johnson murdered Romeca Blackmon with intent, intentionally here, and that they feel like she is not a threat and should be released either on home confinement or electronic monitoring. Also very interesting detail that came out of this was seeing that there is no video that shows the full picture of this killing.
And there were a lot of people out there.
There were a lot of people out there. There's cameras out there. We know there was a CTA bus that caught something, but apparently no actual video of this entire killing. Again, her attorney is really saying, look, this was an act of self-defense. This is why. Saying that Romeca had threatened Johnson. No, they had not seen each other before, but that she had made threats to her through family, including calling her grandmother and saying that she was going to kill her. So there's a lot of things that have come out of this, including that order of protection. Remember, we saw on our end that it was not served. According to them, they're saying that the order was actually granted on July of 2025, months before the shooting. And the victim was served and aware of that order. So there's a lot of things that have come out of this that I don't think we really had a clear picture of.
At least we're hearing the other side.
The other side. And I think it's important, to show the other side, because as of right now, we did request an interview with Quadeja Holly Johnson. We submitted that back in December of last year, and we never heard anything back. I actually did call up the attorney today just to see, was there an opportunity for that to happen? Let's just say she made it very clear that they will not be talking anytime soon. I'll leave it at that. But we have tried to get the other side of this. Obviously, we heard from Carlos, who was there, who is a survivor, a person who lived to tell the story. And we can't talk to Romeca because she's not here. And so we haven't been afforded the opportunity to talk to Quadeja about what happened. But they're saying that 4 minutes after Romeca dropped off her son at school, that she was driving in the opposite direction of Quadeja and Carlos. Quadeja was going back to her car, which was parked nearby, because she had spent time at Carlos's home. And according to them, Romeca then makes a U-turn in the middle of the street, and that is where you see her car double park. And according to them, this is the exact quote from them, and it will be in my report this evening, that when Romeca approached them, she yelled, "I told y'all I was going to catch you." And so for Johnson, because her 6-month-old at the time was in the car, according to her lawyer, is saying that was enough. The previous threats, the demeanor of making the U-turn,
the protective order, and what was said out there that day was enough for Johnson to fire her legal, rightful owned firearm. So yes, we are hearing from the other side, and again, that's our job to tell all the sides. So absolutely,
that's where we are with this.
And maybe, I mean, we mentioned from the outset here that a lot of people have been following this story. Well, let's just assume, we have some people who are saying, who is Quadeja Holly Johnson?
There may be.
Who is Romeca Blackmon? And what is their connection? What happened?
So let's walk back through it. So what we know is that I shouldn't say earlier this year, because it was last year. Last year, we'll walk through who the players are here. So Quadeja Holly Johnson and Romeca Blackmon are 2 women. They both have children by the same man. His name is Carlos Smith. He did an interview with us. When this situation happened last year, Quadeja Holly Johnson is saying that she felt that she had to defend herself from Romeca Blackmon because they had an ongoing feud in which they had never seen each other until the day of this shooting. Romeca is shot literally like not even full blocks away from her son's school after dropping him off. She dies. And so the question now is, this is what people have been asking, when is it okay for you to act in self-defense? When is it okay for you to pull your lawful firearm and shoot someone, considering that Romeca Blackmon did not have a gun? It was verbal threats. In this case, they're saying that she laid hands on Johnson. That's also something that was said here. And so when do you have the right to pull your weapon out and shoot someone? And so this has been a case that has exploded, not just here in Chicago, but beyond, I think because of the way that it happened and who's involved.
And Quadeja was not immediately put in jail.
Correct. Quadeja Holly Johnson was not immediately put in jail. I think it was 2 months or so, maybe 3 months after. And people have been calling for her to be arrested and just asking the question of what happened. This happened on September 8th of 2025. So it did take some time for her to be arrested. And so a lot of people have been asking, why did it take so long? And there was some video from the scene, and the video that we've seen circulated around is the aftermath. And so based on that video alone, people felt like, oh no, she needs to be arrested. And that's where we are with it.
And in the process of that 2 months,
before she ended up actually being taken into custody. By the time she got in custody, she was pregnant again.
She was pregnant. According to this, she was pregnant at the time, or at least was aware of a pregnancy at the time of her interaction with Romeca. And so that is an additional level of why, according to her attorney, of why she felt the need to defend herself. I think right now it's going to be really interesting, because if you go through the 20 pages like I did, and I didn't get into every single witness, but the witnesses' statements based on what Quadeja Holly Johnson's attorney has, they are conflicting. If this is all indeed, fact, it is questionable of who saw what, and are they sure they saw it? How did they see it? It does matter. I know some people will argue this, but it does matter if you're wearing headphones that are noise canceling and if they're on.
Yeah, sure.
We don't know if they were on.
Yeah.
I guess in some video they do show her wearing these headphones, so we don't know if they were on or not. But even if you have huge bulky headphones on with the cushioning, it does distort what you hear. So looking at her side of things now, being able to see it, because we never got to see her side of things, it does bring up.
So, I leave you with this. How would you react if confronted by fear and chaos while protecting someone you love? How do you balance instinct, morality, and legality when one wrong move could end a life? And what does it say about human behavior that a man, two women, and a child's morning routine could spiral into death and a courtroom battle? If this story made you pause, think, or question what you would do in such a situation, don't just scroll by. Comment your thoughts. Share this video with someone who will want to discuss it. Subscribe to Mystoracrimes and click the bell icon to stay updated on cases like this. We explore the details, the psychology, and the shocking realities behind the headlines. And your engagement helps keep the conversation alive.